Thanks, Andy, for the opportunity to share my testimony. If you don't know me, my name is Andy Shin. Um, my wife Lily is in the back with our son Toby. But just a little bit about me and my life. I grew up going to church with my parents, who are both believers. Externally, I did all the right things and seemed to be a good kid, when in fact, my heart was far from it. Looking back, you would have seen me just caught up in the fear of man, living for myself, living for man's approval, so that I would feel good, that I would feel validated, essentially living for my own glory. And this all came to a head when I moved out to go to college in San Diego. Without my parents nearby or accountability, my rebellious heart really came to light. At that time, I thought I was finally free to do whatever I wanted. But in reality, I was still enslaved to my sin. I stopped going to church. I lied to my parents about going to church. More or less, I wasted away my first year of college. And just fast forwarding to that first summer, moving back home, I went back to the church that I grew up in, and I reconnected with an old friend. We were the same year, we went to the same school, and while I had run far away and lived in my sin, he, on the other hand, had gotten himself plugged into Lighthouse San Diego and had grown tremendously under the teaching and fellowship of strong, faithful believers at the church and at the campus ministry we had at that time. Over the summer, I reevaluated my life, and for the first time, I was honest about where I was and my non-existent faith at that time. So with the encouragement of that friend, I started attending Lighthouse, and over the next several months, grew to understand the gospel, and for the first time, really submitted my life to Christ. While in the past, I had lived depending on my own futile efforts, living for myself, I now started to understand my sin, what it meant to depend on the finished work of Christ, and also started to turn away from my sin. A lot has happened since then. Over the years, there seems to be a pattern of God reminding me and teaching me to trust in Him through various circumstances and trials. And I'm also continuously reminded of my sin each day. More recently, I'm realizing my many shortcomings as a first-time father, and as any parent will tell you, it's somehow the most fun, yet one of the most challenging things, being a parent. The physical tiring aspect of it is one thing, but the responsibility as a father to lead and point children to Christ, both in word and in deed, day after day, can at times seem impossible. Our son is only one, and I only have one child, yet I'm already feeling overwhelmed at times, and sometimes it just seems impossible. He's only one, and yet reveals the sin in my heart each day. And left to ourselves, it is impossible. So while we do our best, we continue to pray that God will one day also open His heart to the gospel, and I continue to trust in Him through that. We continuously pray for wisdom and continue to fight sin, and as we know, it'll be like that until heaven. In terms of Lighthouse as a church, as you can see, it's been an integral part of my life, from my salvation to the teaching and fellowship over the many years. In every stage of life, people have been there alongside to support, pray, to give counsel, and just to share life with me and with one another. We've been blessed to have people who lead by example, who serve humbly, and to point us to the Word. We've seen it over the many years. It's really what you put into church, getting involved in the life of those around you, and really being a blessing to one another. We all struggle with sin, and we're in different aspects, at different paces and different points in our lives, but we can be such an encouragement to one another. Just in closing, I'd like to read from Ephesians 2. It's obviously a very well-known passage, but one I continually turn back to, and hopefully it's an encouragement to you as well. Ephesians 2, 1. As for you, you are dead in your transgressions and sins, in which you used to live when you followed the ways of this world and of the ruler of the kingdom of the air, the Spirit who is now at work in those who are disobedient. All of us also lived among them at one time, gratifying the cravings of our flesh and following its desires and thoughts. Like the rest, we were by nature deserving of wrath, but because of his great love for us, God, who is rich in mercy, made us alive with Christ, even when we were dead in transgressions. It is by grace you have been saved. Thank you.